Hello students. So today's video is a discussion of the third slot of CAT 24, the VARC section. Well, as you know, 24 questions and the order was not predetermined. I mean, it wasn't a straightforward first RCs then verbal ability order. They were jumbled. So we will take them up in the order in which they appear. RC passage over here. So let's have a look. Fears of artificial intelligence, AI, have haunted humanity since the very beginning of the computer age. Hitherto, these fears focused on machines using physical means to kill, enslave or replace people. That's what everyone imagined. But over the past couple of years, new AI tools have emerged that threaten the survival of human civilization from an unexpected direction. AI has gained some remarkable abilities to manipulate and generate language, whether with words, sounds or images. AI has thereby hacked the operating system of our civilization, namely language itself. Language is the stuff almost all human culture is made of. Human rights, for example, aren't inscribed in our DNA. Rather, they are cultural artifacts that we created by telling stories and writing laws. Gods aren't physical realities. Rather, they are cultural artifacts we created by inventing myths and writing scriptures. What would happen once a non-human intelligence becomes better than the average human at telling stories, composing melodies, drawing images and writing laws and scriptures? When people think about ChatGPT and the other new AI tools, they are often drawn to examples like school children using AI to write their essays. But obviously there's something else. What will happen to the school system when kids do that? But this kind of question misses the big picture. Forget about school essays. Think about the next American presidential race in 2024 and try to imagine the impact of AI tools that can be made to mass produce political content, fake news stories and scriptures for new cults. Through its mastery of language, AI could even form intimate relationships with people and use the power of intimacy to change our opinions and worldviews. Although there is no indication that AI has any consciousness or feelings of its own, to foster fake intimacy with humans, it is enough if the AI can make them feel emotionally attached to it. This seems very futuristic to a generation like mine, but is a very possible scenario today according to this passage. What will happen to the course of history when AI takes over culture and begins producing stories, melodies, laws and religions? Previous tools like the printing press and radio helped spread the cultural ideas of humans, but they never created new cultural ideas of their own. AI is fundamentally different. AI can create completely new ideas, completely new culture. Of course, the new power of AI could be used for good purposes as well. I won't dwell on this because the people who develop AI talk about it enough. So what this author is saying is, AI might actually have positive, let's say, outcomes as well. But let me not talk about that because there's enough that people talk about. Let me talk about negatives. What happens if AI changes even culture that people might, or develop a new culture that people would have to kind of conform to? So that's what the person is saying about AI. In other words, he's making AI sound far more dangerous than anybody else does, because he says it's actually about changing the way humans live their lives. Okay, so we can still regulate the new AI tools, but we must act quickly. Whereas nukes cannot invent more powerful nukes, AI can make exponentially more powerful AI. Unregulated AI deployments would create social chaos, which would benefit autocrats and ruin democracies. Democracy is a conversation, and conversations rely on language. When AI hacks language, it could destroy our ability to have meaningful conversations, thereby destroying democracy. And the first regulation I would suggest is to make it mandatory for AI to disclose that it is an AI. If I'm having a conversation with someone and I cannot tell whether it's a human or AI, that's the end of democracy. This text has been generated by a human, or as it. Now that's a very humorous way of ending it, or let's say a very cryptic way to say, now you think about it. Has this been written by a human, or has AI written this as well? And if you consider what this author has told us about the capacity that AI has, it's very likely that this text could actually have been written by some AI, let's say, intelligence, right? Some artificial intelligence. Anyway, but that is to be taken with less seriousness than the rest. The rest is, there is a really strong potential, let's say, danger of chaos that could kill democracy if AI were to develop the way it does. The tone of the passage could best be described as prescient, as the author analyzed the future impact of the use of AI on new tools on crucial areas of our society and culture. But prescient would mean knowing exactly what's going to happen. He's talking about possibilities. He's talking about possibilities. He's not saying that this is going to happen. He says this could happen. So, cautionary because the author lays out some adverse effects of the proliferation of unregulated AI tools. Quite right. He says, let's be careful. We need to start regulating because it could happen. So, cautionary is more effective than prescient. Alarmist because the passage discusses scenarios of the influence of new AI tools on language and human emotions. No, but he also talks about the fact that we need to regulate, no? Which means it's cautionary and not just alarmist. Quizzical as the passage poses several questions, concluding with the question of whether or not the passage content has been generated by AI, but that is only a side thought, just to draw your attention to it. The focus there is, let's be a little careful because this has capacities of changing culture unless we start regulating it. That's why 2, cautionary is the best answer we have. The author identifies all of the following as the dire outcomes of the capture of language by AI, except that means 3 of them are outcomes, 1 is not. It could spawn a culture completely new through its ability to create new ideas and opinions, yes. It could eventually subvert democratic processes through the mass creation and spread of fake political content and news, yes, because then the voices of the people get drowned. It could outstrip human creativity and endeavors in the spheres such as art and music and the formulation of laws. It says yes, that is also possible. Then what happens to our culture? It could apply its mastery of language to create strong emotional ties which could exacerbate the polarization of political views. The strong emotional ties part is there, but we are not saying that the political views will get polarized because we have emotional ties. So that is not what the person is talking about. So 4 is the exception to this particular case, in this particular case. So that would be question 13. Now 14 says, the author terms language the operating system of civilization for all the following reasons except. That means why does he call it that? One statement here is not that. It has laid the foundation for creation of cultural artifacts through writing and telling of stories, yes. It can influence political views and opinions as it engenders close emotional ties among people, can influence political views and opinions because people have emotional ties, yes, okay. It is fundamental to the articulation and spread of human values and culture in our society, yes, that's thanks to the fact that we communicate. It is the basis of AI tools like CAT GPT which can be used to generate academic content and opinion. Is language the basis of AI tools or are AI tools beginning to use language? So we are saying AI tools are beginning to use language. We are not saying it is the basis of AI tools. So 4 is not why he is calling it the operating system. He is calling the operating system because it is what prompts all our human endeavor. So 4 then is the answer to this question. We can infer that the author is most likely to agree with which of the following statements? People's fears of the dangers of students using AI, CAT GPT and other new AI tools are unfounded? No, he says they are very, very relevant. The commonly expressed fear that future AI developments will fatally harm humans is unfounded? No, he says no, humans will actually be affected by it. In fact, democracy might actually even, it's very possible if not regulated, to come to the end. One of the biggest casualties from the spread of unregulated AI is likely to be the democratic process. One of the biggest casualties, the biggest part here is something that we have to pay attention to. It could be a casualty. Is it the biggest casualty? There is no comparative assessment made. Then, apart from its drawbacks, AI tools have been beneficial in boosting technological and industrial advance worldwide. That he says down at the end. So, he does agree. He says, I am not going to talk about it because other people do, but yeah, there are positive benefits as well. So, yeah, he would agree with 1, 2 and 4, but not with 3. So, 3 then is the answer to this question, okay? Because the biggest here requires comparative assessment, which is not made in the passage. So, that's 15 for you. This question is again where you find the best place for the sentence. The sentence is, this reality, and we know it has to be some reality, so definitely it can't be an opening statement. This reality is putting stress on employees who have to pay for transport, desk lunches, more children, clothing and that after work socialization, cost they haven't incurred for nearly 2 years. So, which reality? Let's see. Prices are rising at their fastest rate in 40 years. Consequently, return to office related costs have shot up. Think petrol and food for instance. Now, what I put in 2. Now, this reality, office shops have cost gone up. That means this reality of prices going up is putting stress on employees who have to pay for transport, etc., more cost they haven't incurred for nearly 2 years. Let's just consider that maybe 2 can be a place. But says yet wages haven't kept up with inflation, but that's also part of the reality. The reality is prices have gone up, but wages haven't actually gone up, let's say in comparison, right? So yet wages haven't kept up with inflation even despite the salary growth many workers have enjoyed during a favorable pandemic labor market, which means the reality is actually both together. The price is rising, but wages not going up, and therefore the reality is putting stress on. So we know that better than 2 would be to place it in 3. Let's just consider that. Now, this is especially jarring. What is especially jarring? That wages haven't kept up. This is especially jarring for workers who were able to save during remote work when these expenditures weren't a factor. Which expenditures? We don't have any expenditures in this sentence, but we do have expenditures here. The given sentence has expenditures. It has transport, desk lunches, more childcare, clothing, that of after work socialization. So these expenses were not a factor earlier. That means for 2 years of remote work during the pandemic, they didn't have to bear these expenses. Now suddenly the expenses are back and it is actually a stress. So which means 3 is actually very relevant. Now, would I put it in 4? No, because I've actually listed the expenses, then I've said these expenses. So these expenses here are very clearly the expenses here, right? Which means, here, which means the sentence is best in 3, not in 4. Isn't it? So your option is 3. It's choice 2. Now let's read it that way. Prices are rising, wages haven't gone up, right? This is really putting a stress for people who have all these expenses that are listed out, and it's especially jarring for people who really had no expenses for the last 2 years during the let us say pandemic time. In April 2022, University of UMass, a London University, it's a name, is it? UMass, a London University lecturer, told BBC Worklife that they were spending nearly a quarter of what they made every day on return to work costs, which means this is an example of a person who's telling you exactly how much of a financial strain these renewed costs are. So option 3, named blank 3, and therefore choice 2 is the answer to this question. Do remember, of course, that careful reading is always the key. You can't afford to come down to choices unless you have interpreted your paragraphs properly. So read, think about paragraphs, assess the ideas that they carry, work out flow, and then come down to answers. So that would be a much better way of, that would be a good way of doing it. And for preparation, of course, reading is your best preparation. Along with everything else that you do, please ensure that you read, expand your vocabulary, your ability with sentences and flow, and then you will find these things much easier to do. So thank you and all the best.